I once met an old farmer in Idaho who taught me something remarkable about the mind. He'd been working the same land for 40 years, and one spring morning while we were walking through his wheat fields, he stopped, picked up a handful of soil and said, "You see this dirt? Most folks just see dirt, but I see potential. Every year, I get to choose what grows here. Could be wheat, could be weeds. The soil doesn't care. It'll grow whatever you plant." That's when it hit me. Our minds work exactly the same way. You see, most people wander through life letting their thoughts grow like an untended garden. They never realize they're the gardener of their own mind. And boy, what a price we pay for that oversight. Every single day, your mind processes about 60,000 thoughts. Now imagine if those thoughts were seeds, what kind of garden are you growing up there? Some folks, they're planting doubt, fear, worry. I can't do this. What if I fail? Things never work out for me. And sure enough, just like that farmer's field, whatever you plant is exactly what you'll harvest. I remember talking to a young entrepreneur in Chicago, smart fellow, had everything going for him. But he kept telling himself he wasn't ready, wasn't good enough. Know what happened? His business stayed small, struggling. Not because he lacked ability. No, he had plenty of that. It was his thinking that kept him down. See, your thoughts aren't just thoughts. They're the seeds of your future reality. Negative thoughts are like weeds. They don't need any encouragement to grow. They'll sprout up all on their own. And boy, do they spread fast. One negative thought leads to another, and before you know it, your whole mental garden is overrun. Want to know the cost? I'll tell you, every time you entertain a negative thought, you're literally programming your brain for failure. You're telling your subconscious mind, set me up for less than I'm capable of. And your subconscious mind, being the faithful servant it is, says, your wish is my command. But here's the good news, and this is important. Just like that farmer has the power to decide what grows in his field, you have the absolute power to decide what thoughts you'll nurture in your mind. The same soil that grows weeds will grow roses. It's all in what you plant, what you water, what you tend to. When was the last time you took inventory of your mental garden? What kind of thoughts are you harvesting day after day? Are they thoughts of possibility or limitation? Of growth or fear? Of abundance or scarcity? You see, the fascinating thing about the human mind is that it's always working, always growing something. Right now, as you're sitting there, your mind is planting seeds for your future. Those seeds will grow. They have to. That's the law of nature. The only question is, are they seeds you've chosen deliberately, or are they just whatever happened to blow in on the wind? I've watched people transform their lives completely, and it always starts with this understanding. Your thoughts aren't just passing through your mind. They're programming your future. Every negative thought you erase creates space for something better to grow. And just like that farmer knows exactly when to plant his crops, there's a science to cultivating your mind. Those negative thoughts that keep popping up in your mind, they didn't just appear out of nowhere. No, they've got a history just like everything else. And understanding where they come from, well, that's like finding the blueprint to a house you've been living in all your life. I was visiting a friend's home one evening, and his 5-year-old daughter was trying to ride her bicycle. Every time she'd fail, she'd get up and say, "I'm no good at this." Now, where do you think she learned that phrase? I watched as her mother rushed over saying, "Oh, honey, you're right. This is too hard for you. See what happened there? That little girl just received a deposit in her mental bank account, a deposit of limitation. Your environment. It's like the soil your thoughts grow in. Think about it. If you're constantly surrounded by people who complain, who see the worst in everything, who always talk about why things won't work, guess what kind of thoughts are going to take root in your mind? It's like trying to grow an orange tree in Alaska. The environment just won't support it. I remember meeting a man in Denver years ago. He ran a successful business, but he was always stressed, always expecting things to go wrong. One day, I asked him about his childhood. Know what he told me? His father was a wonderful man, but had lived through the Great Depression. Every dinner conversation was about saving money, about how hard times could come back any minute. That man was carrying his father's fears that made sense in 1930, but were holding him back in today's world. See, we're all walking around with what I call early programming. It's like a computer that's still running on its original software. Your parents, your teachers, your early experiences, they all wrote lines of code in your mental computer. Some of that code says you can, some says you can't. Some says the world is abundant, some says there's never enough. You can rewrite that code. You absolutely can. First thing you've got to do, though, is become aware of it. You've got to catch yourself in the act of running those old programs. I worked with a woman once who always said, "I'm not good with money." Every time she'd say it, I'd ask her, "Says who?" Turns out her mother always said the same thing. For 40 years, she'd been running her mother's program without ever questioning it. The day she became aware of that, really aware, was the day things started to change. Awareness, now that's a powerful tool. It's like turning on the lights in a dark room. Suddenly you can see all the furniture you've been bumping into. You start to notice patterns. Maybe you always doubt yourself before trying something new. Maybe you automatically expect people to let you down. Maybe you believe success is for other people. These thoughts, they're like little scripts running in your head. And the first step to changing any script is to know it's there. You've got to become an observer of your own mind. Start catching those negative thoughts as they come up. Don't judge them, just notice them. Oh, there's that thought again. Where did that come from? Seljuk or beating, the moment you start paying attention to your thoughts, you begin to see just how many of them aren't even yours to begin with. They're hand-me-downs, like old clothes that don't quite fit anymore. Maybe it's time to get some new ones, don't you think? And that's where the real power lies, in that moment of awareness. Because once you see where these thoughts come from, once you understand they're not carved in stone, something remarkable happens. You realize you have a choice. Those old negative patterns, they're not you. They're just old programming, and like any program, they can be updated. Your mind is an incredible instrument, but it needs direction. Without awareness, it's like a ship without a captain, blown about by whatever winds happen to be blowing. But with awareness, with that powerful light of consciousness shining on your thoughts, you become the captain of your own ship. You get to choose which thoughts to nurture and which ones to let go. And that brings us to something even more important, the actual process of making those changes. Because understanding where your thoughts come from is just the beginning. What really matters is what you do with that understanding. Most people stay exactly where they are, not because they can't change, but because they don't understand how change really works. You know what the biggest mistake is? Thinking change has to be big to matter. Nothing could be further from the truth. Let me tell you about an experience I had while flying from Los Angeles to New York. I was chatting with the pilot before the flight, and he told me something remarkable. He said, "You know, if I'm off by just 2 degrees in my heading leaving LA, we'll end up in Washington, D.C. instead of New York. Just 2 degrees. That's barely noticeable at the start, but over hundreds of miles, it makes all the difference in the world." Your thoughts work the same way. Every single thought you think is setting a course for your life. Most people never realize this because they're looking for immediate results. They think one positive thought should instantly change their life. When it doesn't, they give up and go right back to their old way of thinking. Thoughts compound, just like money in the bank. They build up interest over time. One negative thought might not seem like much, but one negative thought repeated daily for a year, that's 365 deposits in the wrong direction. And just like that pilot being off by 2 degrees, you end up somewhere completely different from where you intended to go. I remember working with a salesman in Seattle. Every morning, he'd look in the mirror and think another tough day ahead. Just a small thought. seemed harmless enough. But day after day, week after week, the thought was programming his expectation. No surprise his sales were down. Then he made one small change, just one. Instead of another tough day ahead, he started saying, I wonder what opportunities I'll find today. Not some big dramatic affirmation, just a simple shift in perspective. Within 6 months, his sales had doubled. Most people are waiting for some big moment, some dramatic transformation. They want to overhaul their entire way of thinking overnight. But that's not how lasting change works. It's the small changes consistently applied that create the biggest results. Think about it like this. If you were to improve anything in your life by just 1% each day, where would you be in a year? That tiny 1% compounds into something remarkable. But here's the catch. It works both ways. Let your thinking slide by 1% each day, and you'll find yourself in a very different place too. When you first start making these small changes in your thinking, it feels like nothing's happening. It's like turning a huge ship. At first, it seems like all that effort isn't doing anything. But once that momentum starts building, once those small changes start compounding, the transformation is unstoppable. I met a woman in Phoenix who told me she'd been trying to change her negative thinking for years. She tried these huge dramatic changes, writing out 50 affirmations every morning, spending hours visualizing success. But none of it stuck. Know what finally worked? She started with just one small change, catching herself when she said, I can't, that's it. Just noticing when those words came up and asking herself, but what if I could? Such a tiny shift, but it was sustainable. And because it was sustainable, it grew. This is why most people stay stuck. They're trying to make changes that are too big, too fast. They're looking for the dramatic transformation when they should be looking for the 2-degree shift. They don't realize that those small, seemingly insignificant changes in thinking are actually the most powerful force for transformation we have. It's like building a wall. You don't just throw all the bricks up at once. You lay them one at a time, carefully, consistently. Each brick might not look like much on its own, but keep laying them day after day, and eventually you've built something remarkable. Your thoughts work the same way. Each small positive thought is like laying another brick in the foundation of your new mindset. And that brings us to something even more practical. The actual tools and techniques you can use to start making these changes in your thinking. Tools? It's not just having them. It's knowing how to use them effectively. I learned this lesson years ago while visiting a master carpenter. He had this beautiful workshop filled with tools. But what struck me wasn't the tools themselves. It was how he had a specific purpose and place for each one. And that's exactly what we need for transforming our thoughts. Let me tell you about something that's more valuable than gold. Your morning ritual, the first hour of your day, is like the rudder of a ship. It determines the direction of everything that follows. Most people, they stumble out of bed, grab their phone, and immediately plug into the world's problems. Then they wonder why their thoughts are scattered all day. I knew a CEO in Dallas who turned his entire life around with one simple morning practice. Instead of reaching for his phone, he'd take out a blank piece of paper and write down every negative thought trying to creep into his mind. Then, and this is the important part, he'd write next to each one what he knew to be true instead. I'm not ready for today's presentation became I prepared thoroughly and I have value to share. Simple? Yes. Powerful? Absolutely. This writing therapy, it's like having a conversation with yourself on paper. There's something almost magical about seeing your thoughts in black and white. They can't hide anymore. They can't trick you with their vagueness. When you write them down, you start to see patterns you never noticed before. Technique, it's not just about writing down your thoughts. It's about creating a paper trail of your transformation. Every time you write down a negative thought and consciously replace it, you're literally rewiring your brain. You're creating new neural pathways. It's like carving a new path through an overgrown field. Each time you walk it, it gets a little clearer, a little easier to follow. Most people completely overlook your environment. Your thoughts don't exist in a vacuum. They're influenced by everything around you. I learned this from a friend who was trying to quit smoking. Know what he did? He changed his entire morning route to work, so he wouldn't drive past the store where he usually bought cigarettes. Brilliant! He understood that it's easier to change your environment than to resist it. What messages is it sending to your brain? Are your surroundings supporting your new thoughts or contradicting them? I worked with a writer who was constantly doubting her abilities. Turned out her desk was facing a blank wall. We turned her desk around to face the window, put up some of her published articles where she could see them, and suddenly her whole mental landscape started to shift. This environment design strategy. It's like creating a greenhouse for your new thoughts. You wouldn't try to grow tropical flowers in the Arctic, would you? So why try to grow positive thoughts in an environment that's set up for negativity? Change your surroundings, and you change the thoughts that naturally occur to you. Nature abhors a vacuum, and so does your mind. You can't just eliminate negative thoughts. You've got to replace them with something better. It's like changing the channel on a radio. You can't just turn off the station you don't want to hear. You've got to tune into a better one. I remember working with a young athlete who constantly thought about not failing. Know what happened? He kept failing because what you focus on expands. We changed his strategy. Every time the thought of failing came up, he immediately replaced it with a specific image of executing his technique perfectly. Not just any positive thought, but a specific, detailed replacement. His performance transformed within weeks. This replacement principle, it's like having a mental bouncer. When a negative thought tries to get in, your bouncer doesn't just turn it away. They escort a positive thought in to take its place. And here's the beautiful thing. The more you practice this, the more automatic it becomes. Your mind starts doing it for you. One of my students in Chicago started keeping what she called a replacement journal. Every evening, she'd write down the negative thoughts she'd caught that day and what she'd replaced them with. After a month, she noticed something fascinating. The replacement thoughts were showing up first. She'd literally retrained her brain to go to the positive thought automatically. But remember, all these tools, they're not meant to be used once or twice. They're not a one-time fix. They're practices just like exercising a muscle. And speaking of practice, there's something crucial we need to talk about when it comes to making all of this work day after day. Building a mental fortress isn't something that happens overnight. It's a lot like building a physical fortress. It takes time, it takes patience, and most importantly, it takes the right approach. And I've discovered something fascinating about this process that changed everything for me. How a river creates its path. It doesn't just appear. It carves its way through the landscape, one persistent flow at a time. Your thoughts work exactly the same way. Every time you think a thought, you're carving a pathway in your brain. The more you think it, the deeper that pathway becomes. I remember talking to a neuroscientist in Boston who explained it to me like this. He said, imagine your thoughts are like walking through a field of tall grass. The first time it's difficult, but walk that same path again and again, and eventually you create a clear trail. That's exactly what we're doing. When we build new neural pathways, we're creating trails of possibility in our minds. But here's where most people get it wrong. They try to force their way through. Instead, what if you started asking yourself better questions? You see, your mind is like a servant. It will find answers to whatever questions you ask it. Ask yourself, why does this always happen to me? And your mind will give you reasons why you're a victim. But ask yourself, what can I learn from this? And suddenly you're creating a completely different pathway. I worked with a business owner in Miami who transformed his entire company by changing just one question instead of asking what could go wrong. Every morning, he started asking what could go right. Simple shift, Profound results. His team's creativity exploded. Their problems turned into opportunities, and their revenues doubled in 18 months. Emotional immunity. Just like your body can develop immunity to disease, your mind can develop immunity to negative thoughts. But here's the key. You don't develop immunity by avoiding the negative. You develop it by building up your positive mental muscles. Have you ever noticed how some people can stay calm and centered even when everything's going wrong around them? That's not luck. That's emotional immunity at work. They've built up their mental fortress so well that negative circumstances just don't penetrate as deeply anymore. I met a woman in Seattle who used to get devastated by any criticism at work. She started what she called her victory log. Every night, she'd write down 3 things she did well that day, no matter how small. At first, it was hard for her to find even one thing. But after a few months, something remarkable happened. When criticism came, it didn't shake her anymore. She'd built up her emotional immune system. This brings us to one of the most powerful tools I've ever encountered, the Success Journal Method. Now, this isn't just any journal. This is a strategic tool for building your mental fortress. Here's how it works. Every day you record 3 things: a success you experienced, a lesson you learned, and a positive thought you caught and strengthened. One of my students in Houston used this method to completely transform his self-image. He was a talented architect, but always doubted himself. Every day he'd write in his success journal. At first, his successes were small. I spoke up in a meeting, I finished a draft on time. But as those entries accumulated, something powerful happened. He was literally building evidence of his capability one day at a time. Your mental fortress gets stronger with every piece of evidence you stack up. Every time you catch a negative thought and replace it, every time you ask a better question, every time you record a success, you're adding another stone to your fortress wall. But here's what makes this really powerful. It's not just about building the fortress, it's about living in it. A fortress isn't much good if you don't use it. That's why the daily practice of recording your successes, no matter how small, is so crucial. You're not just building the fortress, you're learning to live in it, to operate from it, to see the world from its wall. How to maintain and strengthen this fortress day after day. How to make it your natural way of being rather than something you have to constantly work at. What separates those who make permanent changes from those who slip back into old patterns? It's not talent and it's not luck. It's their daily practice. It's what they do when no one's watching. Those small decisions they make moment by moment, day after day. I met a surgeon in Cleveland who completely transformed his life with this practice. Every morning, before he'd even get out of bed, he'd ask himself 3 questions. What am I excited about today? Who can I help today? And what's possible today that wasn't possible yesterday? Notice something about these questions. They direct your mind forward, upward, outward. But here's the real secret. It's not just asking the questions, it's lingering with them. Most people rush through their morning routine like they're being chased. This surgeon need take just 5 minutes with these questions. 5 minutes to set the direction for his entire day. He told me something fascinating. He'd performed thousands of surgeries, but he started seeing better outcomes after he began this practice. Because he was programming his mind for possibility before his feet even hit the floor. Something that most people completely overlook. The afternoon reset. You see, by afternoon, most folks are running on mental fumes. Their morning resolve has worn off. Their energy is dipping and those old thought patterns start creeping back in. That's why you need what I call the afternoon reset technique. I learned this from a school teacher in Portland. Every day at lunch, she'd take just 3 minutes. That's all, 3 minutes, to close her eyes and ask herself, what's working right now? She'd find 3 things, no matter how small. Maybe her students were engaged in the morning lesson. Maybe she handled a difficult situation well. Maybe she just remembered to smile more. Simple? Yes. But watch what happens when you do this day after day. It's like resetting your mental compass. Instead of letting the afternoon drag you down, you're consciously redirecting your thoughts back to what's working. I've seen people double their productivity with just this one practice. Why? Because they're not letting their thoughts run on autopilot anymore. The evening review process. This is where the magic happens, where you really cement the changes you're making. Most people end their day by watching TV or scrolling through their phones, letting whatever thoughts happen to drift by take root in their mind. That's like planting random seeds in your garden and hoping something good grows. Instead, try to spend this before bed, just 10 minutes. And review your day like you're watching a movie. But here's the key. You're not just passively watching, you're actively looking for moments where you caught a negative thought and turned it around. Moments where you asked better questions. Moments where you stayed strong in your mental fortress. I worked with a real estate agent in Atlanta who was struggling with confidence. Every evening, she'd write down 3 victories from her day. Times when she pushed through fear, times when she replaced a negative thought with a positive one, times when she asked better questions. Know what happened? Within 6 months, she doubled her sales. Not because the market changed, but because she was reinforcing her new mental patterns every single day. The gratitude multiplier. This isn't just about being thankful. This is about strategically using gratitude to reinforce your mental fortress. Here's how it works. Every time you catch yourself in a negative thought pattern, immediately find 3 things to be grateful for in that exact situation. Let me give you an example. I met a businessman in Chicago who was always stressed about his commute. 45 minutes each way, heavy traffic. You know the story. Instead of letting those negative thoughts spiral, he started finding 3 things to be grateful for during each commute. Maybe it was time to listen to audiobooks. Maybe it was a moment of quiet before a busy day. Maybe it was just the fact that he had a job to drive to. See what happened there? He didn't change the traffic, but he completely changed how his mind processed it. And here's the multiplier effect. Every time you do this, you're not just changing your thought in that moment. You're building a new mental habit that gets stronger and stronger. This daily practice, the morning questions, the afternoon reset, the evening review, the gratitude multiplier, it's like compound interest for your mind. Each small deposit might not seem like much in the moment, but day after day, week after week, year after year, it grows into something remarkable. Remember this? Your thoughts today are creating your reality tomorrow. Every morning power question, every afternoon reset, every evening review is like laying another brick in the foundation of your future. You're not just changing your thoughts. You're literally rewiring your brain for success. And that brings us to what might be the most important part of all this. Taking that first step, making that commitment to yourself that's starting today. Things will be different. Earlier today, I was looking through an old photo album and I found a picture of 2 oak trees. One was massive, majestic, reaching toward the sky. The other was just a small sapling. Both started from the same kind of acorn. The only difference? Time and consistent nourishment. Your mind's like that acorn right now. Within it lies every possibility, every dream, every achievement you've ever imagined. But possibility without action is like an acorn without soil. It can't grow. That's why I'm challenging you, right here, right now, to commit to the next 30 days. Not a year, not 6 months, just 30 days. Because in 30 days, you can create habits that will serve you for a lifetime. Here's what I want you to do. Every morning, ask those power questions. Every afternoon, do your reset. Every evening, review and reflect. No excuses, no exceptions. Just 30 days of consistent mental gardening. Let me tell you about Sarah, a woman I met in San Francisco. She was at the lowest point in her life. Business failing, relationships strained, confidence shattered. but she made this same commitment I'm asking you to make. Just 30 days. Know what happened? By day 7, she noticed she was sleeping better. By day 15, her employees commented on how different she seemed. By day 30, she had landed the biggest contract of her career. Was it magic? No, it was simply the power of directed, consistent thought. Like water wearing away at a rock, her new thought patterns gradually carved new pathways in her mind. The old negative patterns didn't stand a chance against her daily practice. Here's what I know for certain. 5 years from now, you'll either be living with the results of the thoughts you choose today, or you'll be living with the excuses you made for not changing them. The choice is yours. The time is now. Every great oak tree started as a single acorn that refused to give up. Every great achievement started as a single thought that refused to be silenced. Every great transformation started with a single decision that refused to be delayed. Your transformation begins right now, in this moment. Not tomorrow, not next week, not when the time is right, now. Because the truth is, there will never be a perfect time to change your thoughts. There will always be reasons to wait, excuses to delay, circumstances that seem to stand in your way, but you've got something more powerful than any obstacle. You've got the ability to choose your thoughts, and starting today, that's exactly what you're going to do. Choose thoughts that serve you. Choose thoughts that strengthen you. Choose thoughts that move you forward. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Your journey to a completely new way of thinking begins with a single thought. Make it a good one. Make it count. Make it now. Your new life is waiting. What are you thinking?